Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Fit Fusion, and I always have a brilliant guest here with me who will hopefully give vital information on certain aspects. Today's aspect, which is insulin and insulin resistance. Now, we hear about insulin a lot. We hear, especially when it's related to diabetes, maybe a relative is, has to inject insulin. But what is actually insulin? What is its job? How important is it? And also, when we go into a mode of insulin resistance, what does that actually mean? So once again, I've got Zara Hiridjee, who's an AFN, registered associate nutritionist, a health coach, change psychology specialist, and founder of Flourish with Zara. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharif. It's
Brilliant.
always nice to be.
Always a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure to have you, Zara. How you been anyway?
I've been really good, actually. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, I've been brilliant and really happy to be here. And today, as I've just mentioned, we'll be speaking about insulin and insulin resistance. So explain to us, first of all, the where does this insulin come from and what does it do?
Such a relevant topic nowadays, right? Yeah. Because there's so much diabetes. It's definitely one of the main diseases that people have at the moment, right? So what is insulin in the first place? How does that work? Like, we hear all the time, right? Insulin, we don't want spikes, we want insulin to be slow, we want this and this, we don't want it, we don't even know what it is, so we're just gonna go back to the source, right? So let's say tomorrow morning I wake up and I have a piece of bread with, I don't know, tea with like some sugar, let's say. So I'm having this, and it's mostly carbs. We agree that bread is carbs, sugar is carbs, right? It's the same pathway. Maybe there's gonna be a bit of milk, which is a bit of protein, but that's also gonna trigger insulin. So the things that trigger insulin are gonna be carbs plus protein. Fats won't necessarily trigger that insulin response. So I'm having that bread and that milk with sugar. Okay, I'm ingesting it. What does my body do? So it gets into my stomach and it releases into the blood. So the bread becomes carbs, becomes sugar. Like there's like a whole transformation that happens, and then my blood sugar rises. Right. All right. Now, imagine a sponge, okay? What happens when you put water into a sponge?
So it absorbs.
It absorbs, water. Right? Mm-hmm. And what if you put even more water?
It gets really, really full.
It gets really full. And when it's full, if you add more water, what happens?
Does it have any more space?
There is no space, right?
Right.
So imagine that you eat all of that bread, okay? Now imagine insulin, your pancreas, coming and releasing something called insulin. Right. And insulin is going to be the key that opens everything.
So imagine the pancreas creates insulin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, but it's so necessary because without that insulin, you can't store, you can't absorb, you can't get that energy. It's like you're eating food, but you don't absorb it with that insulin, right? So insulin is going to come, and it's the key that opens everything, okay? It opens your muscles, it opens your fat cells, it opens your liver cells, it opens everything, right? And then, like we said, the sugar goes everywhere. So if you do a lot of sports, your muscles are going to be open for insulin, right? Okay. You buy insulin, sorry. Okay. And you eat the bread in the morning, and your muscles are going to absorb some of the carbs, some of the sugar, right? Because you need it. Needed, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Like if you go to the gym the day after, for example, or if you have a really like a manual job and like you walk a lot and stuff like that, you're going to need to feed your muscles with energy, right? Yep. So your muscles are going to absorb the carbs, which is good. You get like that energy, right? But as a sponge, it gets full. Yeah. If you add more, if you add more and more and more, it gets full. And this is something called glycogen. So the way the sugar gets stored in your muscles is called glycogen. So your body's going to keep it. Yeah. I know it's a bit complex, but imagine it as like a Your body just wants to keep that for later, just in case tomorrow we need it.
You're not using all of it.
Exactly, it's like a storage.
Yeah.
In your muscles. So your body is going to keep the carbs in your muscles for the next time you use it. Now there is more.
Yeah.
There's more sugar because you eat a lot. And let's say like this, there's a lot of bread and you eat a lot of sugar in your tea, etc.
Or that you haven't used what you previously ate, right?
Exactly. You haven't.
And now so it could be the same. Somebody actually explained this to me as having a pantry or a cupboard in your kitchen, and you go to the shops and you do a lot of shopping, right? And you fill up the cupboard.
Yeah.
Okay. And then next day you go and you do more shopping, but you haven't used the stuff in your cupboard yet. So eventually that gets full.
Absolutely.
Which means you need another cupboard.
Yeah, if you don't use it, it gets full and you just like accumulate,
right? Okay.
So now your muscles are full. Some of it is going to go a bit in your liver. That's how it works. Some glycogen is stored in the liver. Yeah. And then there's still more. So everything is full. The sponge is literally like super full. You can't add more, right? Unless you exercise until you empty it. Yeah. Okay. So then that's what happens is that's when your fat cells open for insulin to store the carbs as fats.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to when you're going to come to the fat cells, because now you need, and it's amazing that the body actually creates more and more fat cells, right? But then eventually again you go to a point where it can't anymore.
It actually produce more fat cells. It's just that the fat cells stretch.
They stretch, so they get bigger. Okay.
Yes, they get bigger.
So we're talking about the so you've had the bread and you've had all that stuff. Now you're don't worry, I'll remind you. Okay.
So you've had that, and that's like the last resort, right? Like your body stores the fats. And the thing is, if you continuously do this and do this and do this, first of all, like you're gonna gain like fat, of course, or especially like around the belly area or around like your organs, which is
stored.
Stored
and you're not using
the extra, exactly. And the thing is, we think carbs are so bad and we shouldn't eat carbs. It's not this. It's just, we're gonna talk about it later in the episode, I'm assuming, but it's selecting the right carbs and also portion control, because you need those carbs, right? Like we said, for energy, for like even like every day, even your brain needs carbs. When I was saying muscle, it's also your brain, by the way, like it needs carbs to function. You're gonna notice, by the way, if you sometimes like when you don't have carbs, except if you're in a state of ketosis, that we're gonna mention in another episode maybe, but like you get those crashes where you can't really focus because your brain needs that energy, needs glucose to function, right?
So all that also affects the way you think as well. Absolutely. And then fatigue comes in play and so many things. Okay, all right, let's go back a little bit. And so now that you've had that food where you just mentioned, so the insulin will come out. So insulin is like a protective, what do you call it, like an army for that in your body. Can we explain it that way? That we actually need insulin.
We need insulin. It's a key. Like I think the key is the perfect example because it opens basically your cells. You can imagine like insulin coming and be like, you can absorb thanks to me.
The cells for those things to be absorbed.
Absolutely.
Right?
The carbs.
The carbs that you just eat in the white bread or brown bread, whatever. I mean, are we talking about healthy food or unhealthy food?
So
anything.
Any carbs and any protein is gonna trigger that insulin. Like it should trigger that insulin response. Now the thing is, when you eat that bread and that tea with sugar, the response is gonna be a spike. So your body is gonna be like, there's a lot of sugar, we need a lot of insulin, right? So we spike so much insulin, right? Okay. And what does insulin do with all of that sugar? Because there is so much sugar, there is so much insulin. It's going to absorb everything.
Right.
And there is nothing. There is a crash. Okay. So there is a spike and there is a crash.
Right. Okay. So there's a spike and there's a crash. Okay.
And when the crash happens, there's no sugar in your blood. And you need it, like you need a normal amount of sugar. So when that happens, when there's no sugar, your brain is going to tell you, go eat sweets, go eat chocolate bar, like, 2 hours after eating, sometimes you crave, like, because you barely ate and you feel like, even at 11 in the morning.
That's so true, I mean, now, what is the reason for that? Because you've just eaten a couple of hours ago.
Exactly. But that's because of that, because there's no blood, there's no sugar in your blood, and your body wants that energy. And it's not going to ask you, oh, go eat something that is very slow to really sugar. Go eat something that is so sugary that it spikes again.
Goodness me.
Because it's an emergency.
Yeah.
It's an emergency, there's no sugar anymore.
All right.
Because insulin
so
took everything.
We need that sugar in the blood, right?
We need
which is glucose, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need that, but we don't want it to be so high.
We need a stable amount.
That's okay.
And we need, basically, when you eat a meal, to not have a crash, but to have a sustained energy.
Right.
So we don't want like spikes and crashes, right?
That depends on what you eat, what kind of carbs you eat. Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
And not just what kind of carbs you eat, but how you balance your plate in general.
Okay.
Because now we come back to, let's say, in that first bread and tea, okay? We remove the sugar from the tea. Okay. And we're going to take the breads, we're going to put some eggs on the side for protein and fats. Okay. We're going to put some avocado. Right. And we can have, I don't know, some kind of spinach with the eggs, Okay. Now what's going to happen? Everything is mixed together in your stomach. Because we have protein, we have carbs, we have fats, we have fiber. They all have different digestion time. So it's not just going to go in your sugar directly, right? It's going to take so long in your stomach, and that's called gastric emptying. So your stomach is going to get empty slower. And that's what you want, because it's not going to go fast and crash, because not everything is released suddenly.
Right. So the digestive process is slower.
Absolutely.
Which is a good thing. Yeah.
That's what you want.
Because now you got a balance sort of nutrition. You got fiber, you got some good fat. You mentioned avocado, right? And then you got some carbs as well. And protein. So you've got now this is called a balanced diet.
That's a balanced diet. Right. But notice how fats are not going to take, for example, if carbs take, I don't know, I'm just going to say random numbers, by the way. If carbs take 30 minutes to digest, fats are going to take, let's say, 3 hours. Fiber are going to take, like, I don't know, again, I'm going to say a random thing, like 2 hours. Yeah. And it takes, because it's mixed, like it goes slower, right? Yeah. Everything is mixed together. Yep. Right? And that's what we want. So when you eat a meal, how to make it more sustained and not have those spikes and crashes, you mix your carbs with protein like, I don't know, chicken, tofu, Greek yogurt, things like that. Yeah, fish, absolutely. Fish, even like sardines and like tuna and like all of the fish that you eat in Bangladesh, I'm assuming.
They're all fishes, what you just mentioned, but yeah, I mean, we like a nice sardine chutney sometimes, so, but yeah.
I love that. I need to try that.
You do, yep.
Something else would be healthy fats. So I'd say like avocado, extra virgin olive oil, nuts and stuff like that. So that takes a long time to digest. So you're going to be really full for longer. And fiber, so we said like spinach, cucumber, like everything, fruits and veggies. Like fruits not necessarily, because fruits are carbs. So if you really want to work on that kind of stability and not having those crashes, then you would prioritize vegetables, of course. Non-starchy vegetables, so that means like not potatoes, more. Isn't it? Yeah. Exactly.
So more like broccoli, cauliflower.
That's it.
And stuff like that, because they got a lot of antioxidants as well as vitamins, and so
Brussels sprouts, cucumber, carrots, and stuff like that.
It's just about knowing, isn't it? And then you can actually control all that.
Absolutely.
And
So imagine, let's say tomorrow, you're used to having, I don't know, like you're in a rush tomorrow night and you just make pasta. How do you think you could increase and improve the insulin response, right? Yeah. So let's add, let's say, chicken. Let's add a bit of, I don't know, when you make pasta, you can add a bit of tomatoes inside. And you can add some olive oil and stuff like that. And that's definitely going to improve. And you're going to see that, first of all, you're going to be full. And it tastes good. It doesn't have to taste disgusting. And you're also going to realize that you don't necessarily crave those sweets anymore. You know, sometimes I get people and they tell me, oh, I'm an emotional eater because sometimes I'm not hungry and I eat.
Yeah.
And it's not because of this, it's just that their meals are not balanced. And they think they just have those sweet cravings, you know, they think, oh, I'm not disciplined and stuff like that. But when they eat like proper food with proper protein and fats and stuff like that and veggies, they see that. Yeah. They don't need
it's about, and I can give you a personal experience actually with regards to this, because you know, there was a time that, you know, like midnight snacks, right? And so I used to wake up, and if there's like a chocolate bar, right, maybe a Snickers or something, a packet of crisps, right? This is a while ago, by the way. So, you know, I used to crave it. It's like we can. But now what I've done is I've sort of changed it to blueberries and Greek yogurt, what you just mentioned, and sometimes what's that called? You know, like the fruits and nuts mixture, yeah? So I try to sort of change that. So again, it's about knowing, you know, because if you know that stuff is bad for you, and actually it's not, when you just mentioned about, you know, you get the cravings, it's probably because you're like a sugar junkie or something, you know, you just...
But it's like, you think it's because of you, but it's actually your body. It's like subconsciously, your body is like, it's a survival thing. And the trap is, you're going to want something sweet and you're going to have the same cycle 2 hours later and 2 hours later and 2 hours later.
Also, calories make they play a big part there as well, isn't it? I mean, because the stuff that you're eating, some of it has got like bad carbs, for example, simple carbs. They're just empty calories, right? Is that correct, or how do we? It
is correct to an extent. I would definitely, if I was trying to work on these things, I would definitely prioritize complex carbs. So that's something that basically still has fibers, because as we said,
that's so important, isn't it? Fiber,
exactly.
Especially for your gut bacteria and stuff.
Absolutely. So we said we want to mix fiber like vegetables and stuff, but sometimes like the carbs have the fiber already. So whole grains, sweet potato with the skin, potatoes with the skin, like keeping that skin, the skin on the potatoes. Even if you make a curry, having the potatoes with the skin, if you can use it, and having whole grain rice. But then, like, it depends on your goals as well. For example, if you're an athlete, having maybe white rice might be better. But like, if we're talking about,
if we're talking about preventing diabetes, which is very prevalent in our community, and this is why we're doing this show, because we want people to have the correct knowledge. And it's not that, you know, you can't eat what you want. You can, but how much of it that you eat, how often you eat it, right? Okay, let's go back to insulin. So we spoke about the pancreas creating insulin. The insulin comes out, it opens the keys to cells as every time you eat something, right? So we can understand from what you said is how important insulin is. We need it. Now, and also, if we, when do we need more insulin? So you got a lot of sugar, you got a bigger spike, and that's when we need more insulin, right? Now, we understand the fact that we need insulin, okay? Now, what does insulin resistance actually mean? Because that's when the insulin is not really working. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Explain this to us.
So, as you said, we keep having those cycles, right? Spikes, crash, spikes, crash, spikes, crash. And at some point, your body is just gonna, every time it releases insulin, the receptors are not gonna agree with that. They're gonna be like, no, we don't even see the insulin. The insulin goes, but your body doesn't see it. So it's like invisible for your body. So you don't have insulin anymore. Like, your body just doesn't get that insulin. That means there's just free sugar in your blood all the time if there's no insulin.
That sounds, you know, kind of dangerous when you, because that insulin's supposed to come and store that away.
It's supposed to be the key to open the cells.
But now the insulin's not working.
Exactly. You're supposed to open the muscles. You're supposed to put everything in
so
your
it's
cells.
like going back to what I've said earlier on, right? You mentioned key. I said it's like an army. Okay, so your gut bacteria or your stomach is a country, right? And then you've got an army, and you haven't been feeding that army well, or maybe if the army is not strong enough now, right? It's not strong enough, and everything else is resisting it. So the army's not working. I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain.
So Insulin and like the gut microbiome are in some ways related, but they're like
two different
insulin
things.
is a hormone, whereas like the gut bacteria would be like all of the
So tell me,
microbes.
Insulin is a hormone.
Yeah.
It has many jobs.
Yes.
Yeah. But one of the main jobs is to open up.
Absolutely.
So it's the key for it to give nutrition to the cells.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Just for the viewers' sake, and that they can understand this well. Okay. So we've come to that part now. Now we've come to the part that the insulin is not really working.
It's not like your body doesn't see it.
It doesn't. Okay.
Even if your body produces
Because of so much food that you've put in.
because that cycle at some point, like your body just like the receptors just don't agree with it because you did it for so long.
Yeah.
And plus, like you've gained fat, and like your body just stop. The receptors just stop seeing that insulin flow.
Right.
So your body produces insulin because you eat the carbs.
Yeah.
But the receptors don't take it.
Okay.
So basically, there's
So
all
it
of
can't
that
do its
sugar.
job properly.
Exactly.
Right,
You
yeah.
can't store it, and that's why we
So
do
what happens
insulin injections.
so what happens to all the food now? So so we come to that in a bit about we're putting in more insulin. That's when in the form of injection and stuff like that. But so what happens to all the food that you put in your body now?
So that can be like that's when people get diagnosed with diabetes, right? Because like there's like so much sugar that is not used.
Yeah.
So that's when we inject insulin so that your body can actually use that insulin.
Right, okay.
Like there's like a whole system so that your body can actually use that instead of like the insulin that doesn't work, then the receptors that don't work, right? So that would be the whole idea between diabetes, behind diabetes. And we want to prevent that. We want to prevent those things from the beginning and like just preventing those spikes, right? With all of the techniques that we mentioned. But something that is important as well is that it's not just via nutrition. So many things matter when it comes to insulin, like sleep. Sleep actually is a huge part of insulin. So when you don't sleep well for one night during the day, you're going to see you have cravings. You're like, you want to eat more sugar. Have you noticed that? Like you have those cravings, you feel like you want to have more chocolate, you want to have these things because your insulin is not working properly. Something else is stress. So when you're having like this chronic stress where you're so stressed out and stuff, it's so easy to crave sugar as well because insulin is not working properly. And something that can actually help with insulin is going to be exercise because we said the sponge, right? Yeah. You want to empty the muscles. So when you eat carbs, your muscles are so ready to get those carbs. So when you exercise, you can eat more carbs because your muscles are open to more carbs, right? And it's empty now. So yes, I like that. Those would be the main techniques, to be honest, to think about now, especially like if you have a history with your family having like a lot of diabetes, that's very likely to happen to you. So if you can just having those little adjustments that are kind of, when you think about it, it's quite easy. Like just to add a bit of even peanut butter on your toast in the morning. Just those little adjustments that can really help you in the long term.
That's got good fat in it, right?
Exactly. And it's not about removing. It's not about removing. It's just about swapping. For example, that bread that we talked about, swap it for whole breads and you put a bit of peanut butter on it or avocado or like eggs. It's not about removing. It's about adding.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Now, just for the viewers' benefit, what we want to understand is to not fall into that spike and crash. We need, first of all, a balanced diet. Okay,
Yes.
so something mixture of good proteins, good carbs, okay, complex carbs, good fats, and fiber.
Yes,
this is really, really important, isn't it? So, first of all, I would say a balanced diet. And for you to get rid of the extra calories, exercise. Okay, so then you empty out the system kind of thing, and then there's more space for you to put back in. So just for the viewers, in a layman's term, if we say when you fill up your pantry or your cupboard with shopping, before you do more shopping, use the stuff that's in there. Okay, just for two reasons. Look, one is if you don't use it, it probably will go out of date and it's a waste of money. But then you're not going to have more shopping to put in. So use all that. And just going back to what I mean is the stuff that you eat, burn it, and then you can, you know, sort of fill it up with more food, and look at the kind of food that you eat. So balanced diet and exercise. Remember, insulin is a hormone which stores energy, right? Burns and stores as well, isn't it? Right?
Stores.
Stores energy. Yeah. Okay, so stores energy. Now, if there's no space for it to store, then it will just go all over your body, and which is not a good thing. And then we go into diabetes. Type 2 is the first one, and then if you carry on and on and on, maybe you go to type 1 diabetes, right?
Type 1 is like something that you get when you're very young. It's like some kind of,
okay, all right. But type 1 is the one that we see old people have as well.
Yeah.
And then this is when they have to inject insulin, don't they? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like type 1 is not something that is very preventable. So it's something you get early on in life, and then you have to treat until the rest of your life. Whereas type 2 is like the thing at the moment. Yeah.
As long as you have a good diet and exercise and a good lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. Thank you very much, Zara, for explaining this. You know, it's always lovely to have you on the show, and I learn a lot as well. And you can see sometimes I'm giving a few. I mean, I'm trying to understand the information, but you know, you correct me all the time, and it just broadens my knowledge as well.
But you know, it's so important because even if I was a nutritionist, I wouldn't know that, because we don't hear about these things, and it's so normal for even like people that I know that are very into health, etc. They don't necessarily understand it because it's so difficult to understand. Yeah. But I think having those shows and making things a bit easy and like practical can really help.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the show. And we'll be obviously this show will have more episodes, and I hope you enjoy watching the show. And you know, you can make comments to LB24. Anything that you maybe prefer about us covering when it comes to health and nutrition, as the show is called Fit Fusion. And you know, until next time, Assalamu alaikum.